We are now 3 decades on from your recorded debut. I don't know whether you realize this. Sometimes it doesn't quite compute, but your debut, Stranger in Us All, where you wrote 4 of the songs, you sang on Ariel, you sang on Black Masquerade, you sang on Wolf to the Moon and Hall of the Mountain King. Did you think at that time that this is going to be the beginnings of what has been a very fruitful and successful career?
No, and anything that I ever think about planning to happen like that never does. And then the things that I think I'm never ever going to do, somehow life makes me take a left turn and wind up right in the lap of whatever that thing is that I have fear, or it's such life lessons. When I was in university, I pushed off taking, speech taking, public speaking taking until the very, very last courses because I was terrified to talk in front of people, in front of large groups of people.
Sure.
So life says front and center stage for you. So you can learn your lesson. No, I never would have thought that. And again, time goes so fast when you say 30 years. It's mind boggling how quickly you blink and decades just go by so quickly. But I remember those days like they were yesterday. And honestly, like everything in my life with Richie, everything has been this very natural evolution. So I honestly, at that point, just thought I was helping out my husband to be, but boyfriend, I guess, at the time, I lived in, whatever we were, defying definition. But, when he had called me up and saw that I was, a closet poet with my journals and my poetry books and always kept them locked in a closet so no one could see them or read them. And he knew that I would be singing around the house or around the hotel room when he was traveling. And so when he was having a hard time coming up with lyrics, or the writer was the band was having a hard time, and Richie called me and I was at home, our home, and he said, I'm going to fly in a professional lyric writer, tomorrow. We're getting the plane ticket now, unless you can come up with something for this backing track. And back in the days, we didn't have cell phones. So we would play the tape recorder over the phone and I'd listen to it.
Brilliant.
And I took the ferry up to see them in Massachusetts where they were staying. And it was an hour and 15 minutes on the ferry. And in that time, with the sunshine on your face on the top deck on the ferry and the wind in your hair and listening, just hearing the music for an hour and 15 minutes, just came up with 14 verses and drove on to the other side after getting off the ferry. And I said, all right, well, on my notebook, here's what I came up with, guys. And the producer took my notebook and circled the 4 that he liked the best, and the other 2 he pieced together as the chorus and said, cancel the plane ticket for the other lyric writer. We've got it.
It's brilliant. And since then, 11 studio albums with Blackmores Night, 3 live, 6 compilations, 11 singles, 14 videos, and now 3 solo albums, plus guest appearances for other people and raising a family, multiple global tours. There's really been a time when you haven't been producing something musically.
No, I like that you just added musically at the end of that too, because when you said producing something, I was thinking dinner as well. Very important in my household, obviously, keep everybody going. But no, I've always got something going on. Even, and I almost can't stand to just have the quiet or the silence. As much as I need the silence, you need the silence to create. So when there's so much happening and so much going on and so much melee and bedlam and chaos because of the household with what's going on here, it's those quiet moments that I take in my car, from the 5-minute vacation trip from here to the drugstore where I'm picking up, local sundries or something. And then coming back, I say, for 5 minutes, then my brain just kind of relaxes, and then lyrics start to come in. And, so even in those quiet moments, it's always happening. There's always some sort of creativity going, which is great. I feel blessed because of that. I mean, the fact that I can create music that certain people, they don't just listen to, they feel so deeply. and they
Sure.
really relate to, and it moves them, and has done for, as you said, 30 years, where people have written to me that they've used our music not only to get married to, in birthing rooms. Doctors use it, when they're doing heart surgeries. I mean, someone contacted me the other day that they have, an animal charity, and they rescue dogs that have been used, fight dogs. And they said the only way that they could get their dog and transport the dog in a car from place to place is to play the Lullaby album that I had put out. And that relaxes the dog, completely. So it just like sits down in the back seat. It's incredible, the magic that music has and the connection that you can have to people through music. I think people know me better through music than probably people that I've met face to face.
Sure.
Because they see me on different levels, very vulnerable levels. And you have to go into those deep, dark parts to bring them to the sunshine and illuminate them in order to create and bring them to the world. And it's very vulnerable, but, so worth it. So worth it.
So, Sea Glass, the third solo album. Now, each of the previous set albums has been very different. Reflections, Starlight, Starbright, and Sea Glass. What were you looking to create as a solo artist that differs from what you do with Blackmores Night?
The process is completely different with Blackmores Night. When we're working on those songs, Richie will come up with the melody line first on acoustic guitar. And I'll be pottering around the house doing what I need to do to keep everything going, laundry or whatever, helping with homework. And he'll call me in and he'll say, I've got this idea for a top line. Can you sing it? And that's how the process starts. So I'll hum the top line, and then I'll take the idea of the music and go away someplace, maybe go outside and do some gardening and see what pictures the melody line paints in my head, and then try to translate that into lyrical content and what becomes a song later on. But when I'm doing my own, everything comes out at the same time. So I could be walking along the beach or doing anything and going through the woods or, trying to just take time out, and a song idea will come, and the melody and the words all come flooding out at one time. So the process is very different. But I also found that, of course, when we're doing Blackmores Night, I know other people have said before, well, Richie had nothing to do with any of these songs. And I said, no, because then it would be a Blackmores Night song. It wouldn't be a Candice Night song. I mean, he's always in the other room if I needed his help, as I asked him to play guitar on 2 tracks, because I am not proficient really as much on any instrument. But when you want that rolling, amazing, incredible guitar, the acoustic guitar that only Richie can do, and he can make a song like Sea Glass sound like the ocean waves are rising and falling just by playing that guitar. I have to come in and say, honey, can I bother you for a second? And he comes into the other room, and sure enough. So it's always nice to have him there. But he is very much the captain of his boat. And when he comes into a studio for Blackmores Night, he knows how he wants the songs to sound. And if they're not sounding that way, he'll take pieces and parts out and put other pieces and parts in. So it comes out exactly how he wants it to sound. And I do my bit where I write the lyrics and I sing and do the backing vocals and play 9 medieval instruments, but he steers those songs where he wants them to go. So, these songs, I don't think it's really up to him also what songs go on the Blackmores Night album. He's very interested in where the Renaissance flair is and the medieval, and so he has very strong ideas and
Sure.
what songs go where. And so I kind of, just sit back and watch the genius at work. I mean, it's really incredible how his process is, and how I've learned so much from him just by sitting and watching him. And when he asks for my participation, I'm there to say, yes, maybe this or maybe that. And we work together. But other than that, I'm sort of the co-pilot in his journey. So when it comes to my songs, I'm very aware that they're songs that are from my heart. And if I waited for them to be chosen for a Blackmores Night album, it might take years and years for that to happen. So since we've had basically a lull since Blackmores Night, last album, since 2021 when we did Nature's Light.
Yeah.
Out a couple of anniversary editions, which are always fun to do, remixing, remastering, new vocals on certain things. But we're 4 songs in on the next album. So I thought, it's been 10 years since my last solo album. And although Richie loves songs like Promise Me, he would have loved to put Promise Me on the next Blackmore's Night album. I said, well, I don't really want to wait that much longer to put this one out. So if he does choose to do that or redo it on our new album, I'm sure it will be in Richie's style, which is fine because it's, he interprets things in such a different and interesting way. But I'm glad I was able to put out the songs the way that I've heard them, the way that I felt them in their own form before anybody else has pulled any puppet strings and changed them to their own vision.
It's interesting. You've said in the past that depending on the time of the day, your emotions are completely different. So what is your favorite time of the day to create?
Yeah, that's hard. Well, I heard once that there was an old philosophy that said that when you're out there in the daytime and you see the sky is a false boundary. The blue of the sky is like a false ceiling.
Yeah.
And at night, when you go out, it's limitless. You are at one with the skies and the universe and the stars and the planets, and your creativity just grows immensely. And I do find that to be true. I find that I'm very creative at night, watching the phases of the moon or just being outside in the night sky. There's something so incredibly mystical about that, just being enveloped in this cloak of darkness and feeling like you have no boundaries. So I would say anytime after I put the children to sleep, which from 11 o'clock on, because they're night owls, as they have musicians hours, unfortunately, and school, which doesn't work out at this point. But I just feel like the night is so freeing. It's so silent. It allows you to get in touch with your own inner spectrum, your own being. And it's calming, it's peaceful, but it's also invigorating, being able to just be out there and be part of something so much bigger than you. So I always find, it's not like early night. It's got to be deep within it. It's about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning where I feel that.
It takes something to do that as well, to keep your mind fresh, because you described your average day as up at 6:30, school run, then the pick up, the homework, the cooking, more collection and delivery of children from play dates, clubs, classes, then putting them to bed. And then after doing all of that, it's like, I'm now going to go and sit, from 9 until 1, 2 o'clock in the morning and create something. Yeah, exactly. See, fatigue doesn't affect you.
Oh, I'm very much fueled on coffee, and if we could get an IV drip of that, I would be incredibly happy. And I'm going to make a little correction. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning because my daughter is now in high school, so I get even less sleep. And my son goes the hour after that at 6:30. So that's all sorts of fun for us in the morning. And then I spend my hours at night up with Richie. And we are up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. So my plan is, as I do, I do go to bed about 3 a.m. And then I try to sleep for those 2 hours. But of course, as a woman, my brain is constantly ticking. So I probably clock about maybe 1 hour of light sleep there. But I do plan on, when my children go to university, just to sleep for about 3 years straight. So don't call me. Don't call me, don't knock on my door. I'm shutting my ringer for 3 whole years. I hear that's not going to happen because the bigger the kid, the bigger the problems. I hope that's not true. But it would be nice to clock some sleep at some point. You just keep going. I always find that it's incredible what you can accomplish when no isn't an option.
Sure.
And really in my world, trying to keep up with everything and knowing that I'm such an important cog in the clockwork of what happens here. I often say to Richie, I'm like, it's an interesting position to be in, because no one would thank their hand. And yet if you didn't have your hand, you would surely miss it, because you know how much you need that hand in order to do everything. But no one gives the hand credit. I'm sort of the hand in in everyone's relationship here. They just kind of know that I'm here, I'm supportive, I'm taking care of everything. And it's hard. And that's one of the reasons when I recognize that in so many other people that are working moms. And I say working moms because all moms are working moms. We're really 24/7.
Sure.
We're doing it all the time. No matter what age your child is, always doing it for the household and your family. But that's why when I wrote Unsung Hero, I wrote it for my mom, because I got off the phone with her at 2:00 in the morning, and she's another one up all night. We used to say we just change her batteries once a month and she just keeps going like the Energizer bunny. But dealing with people, overseas, then she calls Australia, then she's all over the place doing business and running a worldwide corporation. And I hung up with her and I wrote this song so quickly, like instantaneously. And then later on, when I was in the studio listening to it, I started recognizing part of myself in the song. And the more I heard it, the more I recognized a lot of myself in the song. And it became sort of like a self-portrait. And then as I played it for other people, like my backing vocalist or my violinist, they thought exactly the same thing. They were all going through the same thing. And it's a hard job. It's the most challenging job in the world, but it's also the most rewarding. And every stage and every step is a blessing, and you just keep going and keep doing what you have to do. And thank goodness I like a challenge. Thank goodness, because it just keeps coming up.
The album, you described it as songs taken straight from the pages of a journal, an album of experiences and journeys. It is very, very personal. Did you realize at the time just how much of your emotion and your feelings that you were actually revealing on this album and in these lyrics?
I didn't make a conscious thought about it. I think those are the things that just inspired me so much. Again, when I write, it all just comes out as one flow. It's very different than when someone says to you, here's my melody line, here's, the song, I'm thinking maybe a Renaissance fair or another drinking song, to people to swing their beer mugs too. So, when you kind of step into the world of, beyond the veil of what they're visualizing, and you take it on as your own as well, because it is part of you too, but you kind of disappear into this other world. When the world is solely and 100% your own and coming from your own soul and the depths of your heart, and it's fueled by emotion and love and loss and experience and your own personal journey. It's really, someone asked me the other day, do you write better songs about happiness or joy when you're happy and you're joyful, or right? Or when you're sad? And, appearing as this very, they say Richie and I on stage, the light and the darkness, the yin and the yang, and appearing, to the world as this very sort of light-filled person. And I'm always very, very positive, but I find the layers of melancholy and the layers of the depths of sadness, such an incredible catalyst to be able to write. Whereas I find happiness is sort of like you're experiencing it, so you don't take the time to stop and write, or you're, it's just, it's there, and you're happy, and that's great. But those different layers of like colors of blue, the darker they get, it's kind of tricky to explain, but it's just these different layers of melancholy where I can really get into the depths of my soul. And of course, having experienced loss, when this album, it's been 10 years. So within that 10-year period, we all lost 2 years to COVID. We were all enveloped in darkness in that period. And one of the good things about it is that because we all went through it as a worldwide experience, we can all relate to each other, and we can't just say, only that section of the world, so I don't get it. We were all quarantined, locked in our homes, not allowed to hug people, not allowed to go to concerts where great energy was. We all went through it for a good 2 years, and it ate 2 years of our lives. Previous to that, I lost my dad devastatingly. He fought cancer for a year, so brave. And he was an incredible light in so many people's lives and just the absolute backbone and strength of our family. And these songs, a lot of them came from those experiences and those journeys. And so it's great that you can get something positive like a song out of it. It's so cathartic to be able to write those words down and have a melody line and put it out there in a 4-minute or a 6-minute span. Something that affected you so much for so long and still does somehow fits into that little window of 4 to 6 minutes, which is incredible.
Angel and Jezebel.
Yes.
First of all, the word that Jezebel is such a fantastic. It's one of those words, one of those names that you heard when you were growing up. Your parents or your grandparents describing somebody of I don't know, loose moral fiber who lived down the road. But you've got. So 2 versions, the rock version and the back porch version. You've got a sister as well, haven't you, who's 7 years younger than you. Yes. You have been quick to point out here that this isn't about you portraying yourself as the angel.
Definitely not.
What does your sister think of the track?
Actually, it was my sister's husband that called me and asked me if I needed to make a confession about anything because he needed to know if this was in any way, shape, or form about his wife. And I put him on the straight and narrow about that. And I said, honestly, if she was a Jezebel, I think he would know better than I do. But I feel like we all have a little bit of angel and a little bit of Jezebel within all of us. It's that balance. It's the dichotomy between the two that keeps us human, but it is an interesting psychological experiment to see which one that poor boy would be drawn to, and we all know there's the girl that guys seem to bring home to mom and the girls that guys don't, that they just like maybe that are intrigued by them. We know the girls know what's going on here, but it was just an interesting, fun little storyline brought on by the simple idea of my sister does have the dark hair and she has the dark eyes, and I'm the blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl in the family, and but as far as similarities, that's as far as it goes with that. Although, interestingly enough, my backing singer, who has the long dark hair and the dark eyes as well, her name is Jezebel.
No.
So on stage, you have her and I standing there, and it's like, and whenever I sing that part, I kind of look over at her, and she loves it. She's loving that moment.
Your children's voices heard here on Promise Me as well. Not the first time, by the way, is it that your daughter Autumn has offered contribution? She was behind Ghost of John, wasn't she?
That's right. That's right. She was.
So how do they feel about it? Do they like to be involved? Or when you go to me with a suggestion, is it something they want to do?
Well, at that point, when I recorded Promise Me, that was in 2021. So it's been a while. But I'm so happy that I captured their voices in that innocent way that they were back then. A year in the life of a child is like a lifetime. So you see them go from tiny to, they were toddlers, and turned to teenagers in the span of making this album. And now I'm the shortest one in the whole household, which is very strange. But I have a 14-year-old and a 13-year-old, and my son, who's 13, his voice has dropped probably to where yours is at this point. So him singing that at this point, I don't even think would work out, though he does have a great voice. And so at this point, I think my son is, he's too cool to sing on mommy's stuff anymore, although he does love Dark Carnival. That's his favorite song on the whole album.
Great. There is a great track. It's an instrument. And it had, I was listening to it, it's got that sort of mythical Eastern thing going on, but it did also have a feel of Shadows of the Moon, of that album.
Yeah. Or even, I find it's a very strange thing. When Richie and I first moved into the house, of course, every once in a while I would attempt to try to play guitar. I don't play guitar. I can't play guitar in any way, shape, or form. And he has no patience to teach someone who can't play guitar. So if you don't pick up on it right away, and I just don't. So I said, you know what? I was brought up playing piano. What if we get a piano for the house? And that way I can at least tinker on the piano a little bit, because that I'm kind of familiar with. I'm not proficient, although I am playing on Dark Carnival. That is me playing the piano on Dark Carnival. But so I can get out what I need to as far as demos and things like that, or work out songs. And so we went to a place down the road. We read in the local penny saver, just a little paper they used to have, where an elderly couple was getting rid of their furniture because they were moving to Florida. We live on Long Island, New York. So we went there and they said, listen, we're going to apologize. The piano is not a great instrument. The soundboard is cracked, but it's more, we can't just get rid of it because the family has sat around this for decades and, all sang songs at the most wonderful occasions, and we can't just leave it behind. We really want to make sure it has a good home. So, of course, we stepped up and said, we'll give it a good home. And so we took the piano, we put it in downstairs off the bar room, the dungeon bar room. And it's very dark down there. And the first time I went down there to play it, I remember, because it is off the dungeon bar room. Richie always said he didn't want a studio in the house. He wanted to be the first musician who only had a bar and no studio. He had only a dungeon bar room here, literally with medieval torture devices hanging on the walls. Hardly any lights down there at all. The walls are all very like stone, and it's which is why my children will never have any fear, because if you're brought up in a house like this, then you're the Addams family at the end of the road. So no, you just don't fear anything anymore. So we put the piano off the room down there, but it's very dimly lit, to the point where if there are any bulbs, Richie will color them in Sharpie marker. So it's even more dimly lit. You just can't really see down there. And I was playing, and I looked up, because that one room is surrounded by windows, and I saw a reflection behind me of a man standing there in a jacket with a hat. And I thought, oh, Richie came to hear what I'm doing. So I continued to play. And then when I finished, I looked up and he was gone. And I went, he didn't even say anything. Well, maybe he didn't want to disturb me. And so I came upstairs into the den and I said, hey, how come you didn't say anything? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, you were just listening, weren't you just down there? And he said, I haven't left the couch all night. So now I think that the piano came with its own ghost that just appears when I'm down there. And for some reason, when I'm channeling what the piano wants me to play, I come up with these sort of like European, like Eastern European though, melodies. So Black Roses came from that. Alone with Fate came from that. In Time, off of my first album, Reflections. And of course, this is another one, Dark Carnival. This is where it just came out, just from that piano. So somehow I am channeling some Eastern European spirit that has come with my piano that gives me these wonderful songs that I probably would not normally hear here on Long Island, New York. You're not going to hear those kind of scales. So, but that's the source of that. I have to give credit to the piano, credit where it's due.
I want to just touch briefly on your vocal and how it has changed over the years. And how do you feel when you listen back to Shadow of the Moon? And I did it earlier on today, which had this very, very innocent feel. And then hearing this depth and quality and timbre of what you produce now. How do you feel when you look back then and look and listen to what you do now? Somebody said, by the way, your voice, I remember when I saw this, you have a voice that could make angels weep.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love, when you sing, and I tend to just close my eyes and just try to channel the songs, to the point where even in concert, I will often just close my eyes in a song that I am feeling so much. And I even forget that there are people out there watching,
Sure.
Until you'll finish a song and you'll open your eyes and the audience will just be deadly silent. And at that point that you've sort of cast a spell through your voice, through the most primal of instruments, the very first instrument ever existing, before drums, the voice, which can strike these incredible chords, these deep emotional chords in people, and can bring people to tears. And it's just amazing, because it's not like a power that you have. It's like you're part of that spell as well. It gets cast on me as well. We're all together. We're all feeling that same energy and that same vibration, I guess. But listening back to the earlier songs, and keep in mind, I had never formed a band. I was never the one saying, I'm going to be in the music industry. I mean, I wanted to be in the music industry, but probably doing what you're doing, not doing what I'm doing.
Well, you did, didn't you? You were working for the radio station.
Yeah, I did. I was working for a year and a half, but I was in different departments seeing where I could fit in, where I could help, because
Sure.
I just needed to be around music. Even in college, I had my own radio station where I was at my own radio show where I was like playing all this rock music and the rock candy cafe, I called it. So I had my hour there. But I loved music so much and still do. So to me, it was my breath. It was my religion. It just meant everything to me so deeply. And I just never had the confidence or thought that I would be the one front and center stage. And so when Richie asked me to sing some of these songs, I didn't have the history of, the stage performance or that persona. I just was being me. And I still am me to date, but my voice was not, your voice is a muscle. And so it wasn't trained to the point where it is now after all of these years. As you said, 30 years being on the road, singing, whether it's backup or collaborations or front and center or solo or Blackmores Night. And I've just pushed it further and further and further. And I think it's just warmed up so I can still hit the high notes, but I think it has more of a comforting, calming, stronger quality than the innocence at the beginning. Although at the beginning, I felt like those songs, perhaps when we first started, needed that innocence. It almost feels like a different person, but it's a different application. But I feel like they were true to that time. So it's interesting to hear that girl back then, like looking at scrapbooks or, photo albums of you 30 years ago. It's the same thing for me.
And what about the potential to take this out live? Blackmores Night working on a new album. Would you like to go out yourself with your own select band of musicians? I know you were at the Long Island Hall of Fame the other night, and you were performing there. Would you like to take this out and take it on the road for a few select dates?
It's interesting. It would be an interesting thing to do. What I actually did, we had about 6 dates we were doing with Blackmores Night here. We did Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, some in New Jersey, a couple of them upstate. So I opened for my band. So I had the violinist on one side and the rhythm guitarist, backing vocalist on the other side, and the 3 girls, the ladies of the band, which is also a great visual because you have the red-haired violinist, gypsy violinist on one side, and you've got the dark-haired Jezebel, as we said, on the other side, and then the blonde girl in the middle. And the 3 of us just went out and we played a couple of songs off of Sea Glass. We did Promise Me, to which every time my children came in the audience, or my sister brought her littles there, or my violinist had her little girl there, they would come up on stage and they would sing that part at the end that you would hear on Sea Glass. So we would always have the children's voices within it, just showing that message resonates to the next generation and hopefully continues on, because it really is, even if you don't have children, it's a strong spiritual message for people to follow those words and that path. And then we did Unsung Hero. And the audience loved it because it was sort of like a sneak preview of what the album was coming out, that was going to be out, which is out now. So they were able to hear a couple of songs that hadn't been previously released off Sea Glass. But it is an interesting concept. It's so easy to be able to just grab the girls, go out there and do it, and then go back off stage and come back on 2 minutes later and sing with your band as well. Everybody's, consolidated and there. And as far as like doing it on my own, it's an interesting concept. And I'm still thinking about how I would work that out with travel and band members. It might be easier to open for someone, but always in the works. I'm thinking all the time. So I'm never going to say no. It's definitely a possibility that I'm thinking about at this point.
And lastly then, what is the secret of your success with Blackmores Night and you and Richie living together and continuing to work together and, this relationship which has just blossomed to even greater levels over the course of the years in an industry which, let's be honest, things like that don't usually happen. So what is your secret? How did you make it work for this length of time? Because you might well have only been married for, 12, 15 years, but it goes back decades.
Yeah.
So it's unusual. So why and how did you make it work?
Richie and I have had our meet-iversary. My daughter calls it our meet-iversary. 35 years ago. 35. Because it took us so long to get married. I'm like, I'm not ignoring all of those years before and starting from scratch now. That's a lot of years of service before that. So I need credit for the day that we met, and then it blossomed and bloomed into, like a natural relationship, like they should. Friendship, and then more than that. And then I moved in, and then he took me on the road, and it just blossomed from there. I think it's important to recognize the differences between you and your partner, to know that they're not psychic, that they can't read your mind about your own needs and things that are going on in your head. The sounds are so loud sometimes in your head, the voices, you've got so much happening. Sometimes we forget to verbalize what's going on before we sort of lose our temper. And then why doesn't anybody understand? It's like, because you didn't talk about what's going on. And I think it's really important to recognize the differences between you and the other person. Don't try to force them into your happy place or your world. Just know that they are with you spiritually, with you, in your life. For example, I love to travel. Richie hates to travel because he's been doing it since he was 16 years old, living out of his suitcase. He can't stand it. He'd rather sleep in his own bed than sleep in a loud hotel. And I get that. If I dragged him with us, he would be miserable and ruin it for everybody. If I stayed at home, I would be miserable and ruin it for everybody. So you have to recognize, okay, honey, I'm going to go do this. He has peace and quiet in the house. I go have my adventures with the kids. I come back, and we all get to share the excitement of what we just went through. And that's just one example. But relationships they're like a garden. They don't just bloom and blossom just because they're there. You have got to get your hands dirty. You have got to pull those weeds out. You have got to tend it. You've got to water it. Communication's important, but also leaving people to have their silence and their quiet is important. Recognizing that and understanding the differences doesn't mean that they're different than you to the point where everything has to split completely. It just means they're different humans than you are. Nobody's going to be like you are. And I think trying to force people to do that is not a great idea. So there's a lot of different ways, and I'm still learning. We're all still learning, as humans, as we're evolving, as we're getting older, as we're at different stages of life. We're not the same people we were 5, 10, 15 years ago. And you just hope that as you're growing and changing, you don't do it separately to the point where you don't come back together. I try to explain to my kids, I talk to them about trees, and I say, we're all, because they're very different. My son is all sports all the time. My daughter's all music all the time. And I try to, and they have a hard time connecting. And I said, if you look at a tree, we're all coming from the same root system. Your roots are your ancestors. That trunk of the tree, that's your family. And it's okay to go off on different branches because we're still all so connected by that trunk of the tree. And that's
There's a song there.
There's a song there. There's another song there. Exactly. I've got more of them. They're in here. They're all in here. I need to get them out again.
I gotta say one final thing, because I know we have slightly overrun, but it would be remiss to conclude without just asking how Richie is. I mean, you did drop something of a bombshell on the world a few weeks ago in an interview. Yes, and the new album's coming out and whatever. And yes, Richie had a heart attack a year and a half ago. But, sorry?
Well, I have to say though, but okay, so he does this thing called Tales from the Tavern. Because
I've seen it.
I can't get him to write a book as much as, there you go, like me trying to force him to write something, even though I would love for him to write it and the world would love him to write it. It's not his comfort zone. And he says to me, a lot of the stories that I know maybe aren't the nicest things about, people. And so I can't
sure.
everything. And he doesn't have a filter. So once he starts talking, everything. And so he says, I'm not, that's not my medium. I'm not comfortable with that. He's much more comfortable playing the guitar than he is talking to people. So I get that. So what I try to get him to do after he's had a few drinks and he's comfortable is, hey, you want to take some questions from people? Then I sit on the bar and I crack my neck like this so I can read the words that are this tiny on the screen, and I'm reading to him as people are sending questions in, and he's in his comfort zone down in the Badger and Pussycat pub downstairs in our minstrel hall here, and so he's happy down there, and people get some information and some news. So he actually did give that information out himself. I would never say something that he has already put out there. So although I got more of the attention for saying it, it actually is when you listen to Tales from the Tavern, he did say that himself. So, so
is he in a good place? He's in a good place though, yeah?
Oh, he's in the den watching television and having coffee right now. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. So this is musician's morning. This is musician's morning for us right now. But he just woke up. He's walking around the house. There he is right there. Hey, Rich. Say hi. Hi. He's live, folks. He's still there. I don't have him locked in a cage. I promise you. He's just enjoying, he's living his best life. He's playing with the cat. He's playing his guitar. He's watching his TV. The weather is starting to change to springtime. He's going out for his walks here. And last night he came to me and said, I just wrote a new song. Do you think we should get the producer in? I said, yes, let's get the producer. I'm waiting on you. Let's do it. So we will be heading into the studio again. Look, he's 80 years old. We're all going to go through health issues, health problems. He's the youngest 80 years old that you'll ever see. I mean, honestly. And whereas
he doesn't look it, does he? Let's be honest.
He doesn't act it. Let's be honest about that.
I love that.